All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for our Fireside Chat. So today we're talking about leading change for current and future leaders, and I'm very pleased that we've got Paul Shrimpling. So you might have seen him at our conference last year. He's also just spoken at our roadshows that happened a couple of weeks ago. So if you were there, let us know. So we've got Paul here, but we've also got Luke Robinson, who is a leader in the water cooler business and the sales team. So it'll be really interesting to get both of their perspectives on this subject. We're going to try and keep to the hour, but things might go off on a tangent, so we'll see where we get to. We do have a couple of polls that we'd like you to participate in as well, so you'll see those pop up. So please do interact with us. We'd love to get some insights from you. And now, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Luke and Paul.
Excellent. And what I didn't realise as well is we're now going to be in direct competition with the King. So he's also making a speech at 11:30 this morning.
Was it?
So for all of those who've turned up, thank you for your commitment to this. I guess I may as well start. As Steph said, I am a Waters Clue member of staff. I have been for 2 years, and I'm currently head of new business. So I lead a team of around 8 or 9 individuals who are all based around the country. And that's to bring on board brand new CCH customers. And let's admit it, a very competitive market. And previous to that, my sales career took a bit of a different trajectory for about 5 or 6 years, where I was a trainer, speaker, and consultant. So I'd be brought into events, into organizations as really the catalyst for change from a sales perspective. But often what we bring in is a lot of tools that would help organizations actually make decisions for themselves, and not in terms of bringing on new customers. So fingers crossed, I can give it a non-sales spin today, but a lot of the context that I will bring is probably from that world.
Brilliant. So if you haven't met me before, Paul Shrimpling, founder of Remarkable Practice, worked exclusively with accounting firms for the last 22 years. Can't believe I'm saying that. And we typically work with ambitious accountants who show up at events like this, who want to get insight, skill, make better decisions for the business so that they build a better business. So all I do on a day-to-day basis is spend time with the leadership teams, management teams of accounting firms, helping them overcome challenges and build strategic health and success into the business.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Paul. Now, what we'll do is we'll get straight into it. As Steph said, we've got an hour. The likelihood is based on the previous conversations that me and Paul have got, we can very, very easily fill an hour. But I think as a leader, maybe the best place to start when thinking about making change in your business is really just understanding your why and your what. As in, why are we making the change, and what are we actually doing it for? So when assessing what matters most in your business, I think there are 2 things that we probably need to look at. One, performance levels. And number 2 is employee sentiment. Now, for those of you who don't know, employee sentiment is really a measure of how an organization's employees are feeling about their work and their organization. Now, Paul, how frequently do you, or should you, do employee temperature checks to assess employee sentiment? And in your opinion, what does this ideally look like?
Right. So it sounds like a simple question, that, Luke, but I'm not sure it is. On the grounds that there's 2 contexts here. One is for your people, a strategic context, which is a career-based context for them, because you talk people, team sentiment. I call it engagement. How engaged are they in what they're doing? Which, by the way, is truly connected to their, the core purpose of them as an individual and the business. But strategically, have we got the right appraisal cadence rhythm in place that's demonstrating to each individual team member that you've got their career interests at heart, seriously at heart? They're not an asset. We might refer them as an employee, but if we treat them as volunteers, we have a different style of conversation in those appraisals. Now, whether that's cadences every 13 weeks, every 6 months, if you're at a 12-month appraisal cycle, you're right at the edge of that working, because things change so often in the profession now, in and around technology. And I would argue very, very strongly that even in a strategic context, if you've got an appraisal once a year, having a fireside 15-minute chat with someone every 13 weeks in the run into the next appraisal builds recognition in every team member's head and heart that you care enough about their future career. If it's just a once a year thing, it just feels a little bit like corporate BS.
Yeah,
Or can do.
Yeah, corporate BS is, I think, how a lot of people will look at an annual appraisal.
Most people hate them, Luke.
Yeah, and it will only be an annual appraisal if you do it once a year.
Yeah.
Now, you could do the thing right at the beginning of the year and make sure you're using that to reinforce somebody's journey throughout the other 12 months.
Sure.
But often people just do it as a box ticking exercise, right?
Yeah. And don't enjoy it. The employee, the team member doesn't enjoy it. Whoever's doing the appraisal doesn't enjoy it, as opposed to actually, hang on a second. What we're doing here is having a conversation about their long-term career, their life in business, in your firm for the length of time they're going to be in it. Really, we should be bringing our wholehearted selves to this that delivers for every team member. Yes, I mean, we do quarterly appraisals in our business. In fact, this afternoon, my managing director, Douglas, and my other shareholder director, Kate, are running those appraisals this afternoon. And we did them 13 weeks ago, 13 weeks before that. I've done that all the time. And it brings a speed of progress and sense of, all right, we're moving forward into this space. It's like, right, well, if you've got 150 people, or we were talking to a firm of accountants on Friday with 170 people in and around this engagement piece, Luke, and challenging them on this annual appraisal that no one's taking seriously. Well, if it's not really been taken seriously, how engaged are your team going to be? Because you're demonstrating that you don't care enough about them.
Yeah, and I think if we're looking at the two things that we talked about, performance levels and employee sentiment, I think the more engaged your employee, probably the higher the performance.
Oh, there's so much evidence about that. Huge. I mean, we most of the firms we work with, we encourage them to take the Gallup Q12 survey and to get an assessment as to how engaged their team is. Now, whether you've got a team of 6 or a team of 60, a team of 600 or a team of 6,000, the Gallup survey works. It costs pennies, and they'll give you a measure on what level of engagement you've got across your team. Now, it's a bit scary as a leader to get a KPI on how engaged your team are. And we often, well, Luke, if I can just go, so you've got a team of what? Did you say there's 8 of you?
Yes.
All right. On a scale of 1 to 100, how engaged do you think your team are? I'm putting you on the spot here, mate. Sorry.
I'm going to give myself a generous 70%.
7 out of 10, 70%. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. What do you think the level of engagement across all employees across the whole of the UK are?
Closer to 50, I would say, if not under.
All right. Okay. The Gallup research shows that it's 10 across the UK. 10%.
Okay.
All right. So you've assessed your team at 70. You've assessed the UK at 50, but the UK isn't at 50. It's at 10. Maybe your number for your team isn't right.
Probably. Yeah.
But maybe not. You might be right. You might be right. But can you see, perhaps getting a measure on this is I would argue very strongly that one of the key, if not the key KPI for a leader of a team, a department, a whole firm is how engaged is your team. Your managing director, your CEO, your managing partner. What's your core KPI? Team engagement. And the evidence points to the fact that the more engaged the team, the more profitable, the faster the growth, the more capital value build you get.
Yeah.
The less engaged, the less likely they are to do good work, less likely they are to do it on time, the less likely they are to care for your clients, and it unravels.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, so this is in the space of team sentiment, team engagement. Build a KPI in that enables you to identify how well you're doing, but also because the Gallup Q12 piece is Q12 12 questions, signposts what you should be doing to improve it.
Yeah.
And then typically, because we've done, how many firms have we worked with on Gallup Q12? Maybe 35 now. So I've got 30 odd different reports for different firms. Some of those firms are at the third Gallup Q12 survey in the last 12 months because they want to do it on a relatively regular basis to drive improvement, which improves their decision making around building team sentiment, team engagement, and knowing and having confidence in the fact that if they've got a more engaged team, they'll have better results.
Yeah, and
so that's strategic.
Going back to a point that you made earlier, both probably leader and team member don't enjoy the annual appraisal process. It's coming round again, we're going to have to do it. So you mentioned a couple of things around, well, we do it quarterly. How can you make it cool and sexy? How can you make more people want to do it?
Cool and sexy.
maybe not cool and sexy, but
all right. Okay. I think my cool and sexy days are over, Luke. I think there's it's a good question, by the way. I think it is. Look, if you care enough, if you're committed to help enough, and you're curious enough, you'll have a good appraisal. So if a team leader is running an appraisal and they genuinely care, are genuinely committed to help that person, and are genuinely curious about what's going on, what challenges they've got, where they want to be, future, what their drivers are, what their passions are, both from a work point of view and a home point of view, because it's a human interaction, then it doesn't matter what the form looks like. But if you don't care enough, if you're not committed to help enough, and if you're not curious enough, you don't ask the right questions, good questions, or naff questions for that matter, then it'll just be a box ticking exercise that no one will believe in, and your team engagement will go down.
Yeah.
And by the way, I forgive me if I can't remember which of the 12 questions in Gallup does talk about, does someone care enough about me at work? And another question is about, is someone helping me get better at work? That's not exactly what the question is. Relate directly to those to that appraisal piece.
Yeah,
it's going to be a component.
Yeah, on the subject of getting better as well, I know that we linked engagement to performance, right? So if we think about performance metrics, can you share an example of a performance metric that helps you significantly, influence or improve your strategic decisions?
Gallup Q12. Forgive me, but there's one. But can I just I'll come back to that question and say, just circle back, because you asked me about team sentiment, team engagement, and I went, look, there's what's going on from a strategic perspective, career-wise, which is appraisal. There's also, Luke, what's going on tactically, week in, week out, to engage with the team members, so it's crystal clear to them what's expected of them that week, and crystal clear to them that actually they're being recognised for doing good work every week.
Yeah.
And so just to finish the answer to that first question is, team engagement happens strategically on a quarterly or biannual basis around an appraisal process of some description. And Gallup have got loads of supporting evidence, and they're not on their own. Bain & Co have got loads, McKinsey have got loads. There's too much evidence out there to ignore that. Similarly, I want to know what's expected of me this week, which still means I can get a sense of achievement this week when I do it, and actually I can get some recognition for doing a good job. So there's what's the weekly process, the weekly structure with every team member that are getting a 10 minutes, 15 minutes. What did you love about last week? What did you hate about last week? What's the plan this week? What are the three key things you're absolutely going to get done this week? How can I help? That creates absolute clarity on what's expected of me. It also creates an opportunity for the manager to go, well done, Paul. You worked really hard. I know you struggled, but I know you worked really hard on that job. Well done. And this other piece, you've knocked it out of the park. You've got it over the line. We've got that report to the client, whatever it is. So there's what's the tactical and strategic approach to team sentiment, team engagement, is what's happening every week with every team member so that they know what's expected of them, and they get recognition for doing good work or hard work, invest in the whole of themselves, and strategically what's going on from an appraisal perspective. So that's just wanted to wrap that up into a neat bow, because there's KPIs, because you're asking me about measures. There are two types of measures. There are strategic measures and there are tactical measures. What KPIs are you tracking and measuring every week? What are you tracking and measuring every 13 weeks with a strategic feel to it? Might be every month, depending on the nature, size and complexity of your business. So your question, I think, was, have you got specific measures that show, if you track it it plays out well in delivering results.
Yeah, and if I think about my world as well, right? Salespeople are often suffocated by KPIs,
Yeah.
and then if we think about their overall target and that's their number, beyond that target, they're probably a little rudderless in terms of what else is expected of them.
Mm.
And if you're just putting these things in place, it's all data driven. And I just think, what is that person expect? What do we expect of that person? Not in terms of their output. It's what are they doing on top of that?
Yeah. See, you started this discussion, Luke, around, this is about performance and people. We call that, and our core purpose is humanize the numbers. You got to, are we human enough? And are we tracking the right numbers enough? Because if we're both human and obsessed about the right numbers, in the right cadence, in the right rhythm, we'll actually end up with a really good place to work where people feel proud and enjoy it and generate brilliant results. It's key. I mean, I come from a sales background. I used to be in recruitment sales, and I'm sure everyone's now going, "Ooh," who's listening to this. I get that. It was an education in selling, though, and we had daily KPIs, and we had weekly KPIs, and the ones who took them seriously made loads of money.
Yeah.
It wasn't the most human of businesses, I've got to say, which is why I got out. But their obsession with the right numbers every day, every week, makes a successful recruitment business.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any different to a sales team like yours, Luke. And I don't think it's any different in an accounting firm. So just to answer your question about KPIs, tactically, how do you get to a place where there's no tax returns done in January, irrelevant to size of firm? So, well, actually, if we track and measure from the 1st of May, when the software's updated, the tax software's updated, we track and measure 3 KPIs every week without fail from the 1st of May to the end of December and work out what number we have to hit in order to make sure there are no tax returns in January, then you'll have no tax returns in January, or you'll have a dozen. Or you'll have, if you've got 10,000, you might have 500 across your team. There's the obsession with the right numbers and the right cadence, the rhythm of tracking those numbers influences the decisions that get made in firms. And so we've got multiple examples of firms who've gone from a tax return curve that looks like that as you head from May through to January. And within one tax season, halve the number of tax returns done in January and December. So they flattened it, and the following season, flatline it completely. Takes loads of stress out of the team. Guess what? Team engaged? Bet your bottom dollar. Oh, by the way, the team have had an extended holiday over Christmas. Oh, that has an impact. It has an impact on people, rather than having sweaty evenings, sweaty nights sleep, thinking they've got a shed load of tax returns to do. All because 3 KPIs get measured. Those being, have we got a full set of data to do a tax return? How many of those have we got this week in? And how many returns have we submitted every week? There too, there's what we call a predictive KPI before that. How many calls, text, WhatsApp messages, whatever form of comms those particular clients need are made every week to chase the missing piece of data, as opposed to just let's email them, which no one responds to emails. Really?
Yeah, as a salesperson, I know that.
All right. So can you see if we're tracking and measuring the number of communications to clients every week, chasing stuff, the number of full sets of data coming in every week, the number of returns completed and submitted every week, will they actually help flatline their? Yeah, they will. They'll work it out.
Yeah.
We get loads of pushback from firms on this. Tax teams going, that doesn't work. It'll never work. I'm sorry. It does work. I've got a small firm on the South Coast, hasn't done any tax returns in January for years, because we ran through this just over a decade with him. He goes skiing. Him and his tax manager go skiing in January.
Yeah. I mean, and if you are flattening the curve and if you are spacing that out right across the year, it gives leaders of organizations more time to think about where they can grow their business. Yeah.
Okay. So now you've gone, look, if we get the right tactical KPIs working with the right weekly cadence, whether it's tax returns, workflow of the annual accounts, scheduling of audit, whatever it is, get that right. It then creates a calmness that enables you to work on your business strategically.
Yeah. And, going back to that point, too often in organizations, I see leaders making decisions that consider their right now. and not what the long-term impact and value of a decision can actually mean. I want to spend the next part of this just discussing, how we can make decisions to support your business.
Okay.
Let's say in 3 or, it's not where do you see your business in 5 years' time, but it's what's your aspiration? What does the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years look like? So what do you think are the key factors that people need to consider when making strategic decisions for that time frame, for those next 3 to 5 years?
Okay. Well, we talk about a framework from the book, which is coming out shortly. I'm just pointing to it because that's the sample copy there. We talk about answer the 8 questions of strategy, or rather a better label, answer the 8 questions of strategic health. And you set yourself up for making good decisions. Good decisions often, Luke, are connected with the difficulties and challenges that our business is facing. We've got to make this really practical, because one of the big pushbacks, quite rightly, on strategic health and strategy is that it's just a talking shop. It's not relevant to my small firm. It's a talking shop, so my big firm or my department's not, it's not my responsibility. Well, hang on. Let's make it real, practical. And so I know we've got a poll that we can perhaps run just on some of the challenges that, firms are facing. So if we can get that running, what I'll do then is put that into a strategic context. That 3 to 5 year period that you're asking the question around, Luke. So it'd be interesting to see what sort of challenges get flagged up on this poll. So we'll let that run, and then we'll get some results in. Although there are 8 questions of strategy, Luke, there's 4 areas of impact. One is the one we've touched on already, which is, have we got a real team first focus so that we get the full potential of all of our team at play in our business? Because if we've got team engagement of, whether it be 10% or 50%, or even if it was at 80%, there's more to be gained. Just to put it into context for everyone on this chat, the lowest firms levels of engagement that we've seen are below 10%. So I've had 2 firms in that space, and the best firm has been over 70. Most are in that 30 to 50% band. But bottom line is, every firm's got great potential going forwards. And so all we need to do is look at our business in a more human way and zero in on what do we have to get in place strategically that helps us make better decisions, so that we create what we call a team first approach. And there are four elements: personal goals, business vision, core purpose, values and behaviors. So, what's the personal goals of the owners of the firm? What are the personal goals of all team members that show up in appraisals? So that, you're connecting the people and that what matters to them and to the business, so that there's a connection. We build that connection. So there's personal goals, business vision. What does the business look like in 5 years' time? How many people, how many clients, turnover, profitability, fees per full-time employee is one of our favorite, strategic metrics to look at. It's a good way of analyzing how firms compare with each other. And there's a big spectrum of that, from 50 to 150 and beyond. So there's 4 pieces of the team first jigsaw that need factoring in. And most firms don't take time out to go, right, let's get absolute clarity on the vision of this business, vivid vision in numbers, and a vivid vision on how it feels to work here and how it feels to be a customer here. And what does the organizational chart look like? And those elements contribute to strategic health. And if you've got clarity as a leader, owner of a team, department, or a firm, because you can do it at any level. You don't need to be the managing director or the board of directors to build in strategic health. You can decide what the vision of your team is in 5 years' time or 3 years' time. Vision is healthy, it helps. But if you worked out why you're in business, why you're doing what you do, core purpose, what are you fundamentally about? Why do you get up in the morning to do what you're doing? Why are you and your team here on this planet? Is the question that most accountants struggle with. We do a lot of work in that space.
Is there a balance to be struck between short-term needs with long-term goals?
I think the balance, yes, it needs to be connected. There's a connection. So if uh, we work with I do a small. You want me to do a small firm story, a large firm story, Luke?
We'll go. I mean, how small is small?
Well, they started out with 5 people.
Okay, we'll do that story and then see where they are now.
Okay, so 5 people, only £275,000 worth of fees, 55k per full-time employee equivalent. Make a decision that they need to invest in being strategically healthy, work out what the business vision looks like in hard numbers, want to be a £1 million turnover business, fees per FTE, what's that number, 100k, okay. What does it feel like to work here? People are proud, they enjoy it, they're invested, they're low team member churn, there's a number of elements to the vision, and I'm shortcutting a big picture here. Let's walk forward 10 years. They passed the million. They're now a £2 million turnover business with 16 people. Fees per FTE £137,000 per full-time employee, because they've got crystal clarity on their core purpose. They've got crystal clarity on the values and behavioural standards. They've got crystal clarity on the vision at different stages, 3 to 5 years of that. We've worked with them for a decade. So they've turned this very humble, modest-sized business into something which everyone in the business is proud of. The results are quite profound. £137,000 per FTE for a small firm looks pretty sharp. Yep. They're targeting 150 this year. And the leader will go, look, this wouldn't be possible if it wasn't clear where we were going. We connected people's personal goals to the business vision, what they want out of it. And one of their team's on sabbatical at the minute because that was a key driver. They wanted 3 months off to go and see family in the Southern Hemisphere. That sort of thing. How do you build it in? That's quite a big, lumpy one. So personal goals, business vision, core purpose, a set of values, 3-4 core values and behavioural standards that are important in this business. Not wall art, but actually really matter. And if you don't behave like this, you really don't belong in this business type edge to it. There are 4 reasons, 4 strategic elements that have contributed to the performance numbers of that business. Yeah. And they, in terms of profitability, make more than a sister company which has got 3 times their turnover.
Yeah, and so I mean, thinking about that as well, if over a 10-year period, probably consistency plays a part in this as well. In terms of they didn't move away from what framework was in place. Yeah. We stuck with it. Yes, it might be tweaked here and again, now and again, but we stuck with the plan and we moved towards where we thought we were going to get.
Yeah, but if we look at the poll that we're just flagging up, just to build a bridge there, Luke. So you've got, people's resistance to change has got the biggest score here. And so what does that tell us? Oh, lack of time capacity. Well, is that because people are resisting changing so that it frees up time? Maybe. But if we just tackle the people's resistance to change, everybody wants to do what they've always done. The human brain's wired to be habitual, so we're always going to do it. So there is a natural dynamic in the human race to want to do what we've always done. There's also a natural dynamic about the human race for change, because we leave home, we go to university, we buy a house, we move house, we have a partner, we change partners, we have children, we change careers. We're all brilliant at change. Absolutely brilliant. So why are people resisting at change? Mostly because it's inflicted on them. People resist when they're pushed to change. And it was interesting, there was a bunch of questions came in prior to our chat, Luke, and not quite half, but a good chunk of them, when I looked at them, it's like, involve your team more. Involve your team more was my answer to, lots of those. There was a question, where have we got? How do we affect change within a traditional organisation with some old school senior people? Involve them more. What's the best way to implement change in an organisation where most of the employees have been there for over 15 years? Involve them more. Involve them in what? Involve them in the business vision, connected to their personal goals. Involve them in the core purpose, what it means to them, to clients, to the firm, the results. Involve them more. Command and control, well, it didn't work like that when I was young. Yeah, well, command and control, do what I say, not what I do. Or just do what I say. Command and control doesn't work. The workforce, whether they're young or old, appreciate being involved. I've just, to get onto this chat, I've just been involved in a strategic review with all of our team on, where we're going, how we've done, what are the next steps, what do they think we can do different, and they're very vocal, Luke. They didn't start out very vocal though when we started this process, because they didn't feel safe enough to have that conversation. What can you see is personal goals, business vision, core purpose. Why are we in business? Well, we're in business to humanize the numbers for ambitious accountants, so that they better connect with their people, better connect with their customers, better connect with the numbers that really matter. Oh, and by the way, better connect with the core purpose that's got real meaning for everyone in the business. Yeah. And this is a part of it's poll 2's flagged up here. I think I need to just share a slide, actually, Luke, if that's all right, because I think it'd be before you answer this poll, let me just, well, there's some flipping in there, but let me share the 8 questions of strategy, because it helps people see what this is, what this looks like. Where are we? If I can find it.
Yeah, and I mean, just while that's loading as well, I'll add on top of that resistance to change.
Yeah.
Right? If 80% of decisions taken in business are taken for emotional reasons, right? Said the Harvard Business School. Now, if we're looking at that in terms of a sales perspective and why customers might leave the company,
yeah,
only 9% of people are usually persuaded to go to their competitor. So that says to us that your biggest competitor as a salesperson is not the competitor themselves. Our biggest competitor is change.
Yeah.
We cannot get people to change because they don't actually understand the long-term value that they're going to get from it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's inertia is almost the biggest issue, isn't it?
Yeah. And we're looking for what's the outside force that would drive a customer to change.
Yeah,
they need to understand that as well.
Yeah.
We can just make them up as we go along, but they've got to understand that as well.
Yeah, for sure. So let me have one more go at finding this. Oh, here we go. Is that showing up all right, Luke?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the so we've got some responses to the poll. I'm just going to challenge people's answers now. So here's what we call the 8 questions of strategy. So the orange one, top left, personal goals. How will your firm's strategy deliver on your personal goals as a business leader owner, whether that's at a team level, department level, or firm level? But also, have we got connections between the personal goals of each individual in our team with the vision, which sits below that one, the business vision question? Have we got those connections built in? Now, give yourselves a score from 1 out of 10 into how well you've done that. So you might score that at 5 out of 10. Business vision, what does success look like at your firm? How clear is that? How well communicated is that? And does it show up every 13 weeks in a team review that shows that your team that you're on track to hit your vision? Score that out of 10. So you might get 5 out of that. Core purpose, what do you and your firm stand for? Connected closely with values and behavioural standards. How must you and your colleagues behave? Score those 2 out of 10, and if you get 5 out of 10 for each, you give yourselves 5 out of 10 generally for what we call the team first section. That's those 4. Those people on their own, your people, are only part of the business. The other humans are your customers. So what matters most to your clients is a key question. How good are you at being absolutely clear about what matters to your clients? Do all your team get that? Can all your team communicate clearly around the 3 things stable in time, we call it? And there's a way of people, if they want to get an assessment on this, by the way, and get themselves a real score, as opposed to an anecdotal score. The 2 next, inevitable trends and in and out challenges, these are the reality checks. What's coming at the profession like a train from a technology point of view? What's coming at the profession like a train from a cultural perspective? Gen Zs, Gen Y, different people's cultural norms are changing. And what are the key challenges in the business, which we touched on with the previous poll? And then last but not least, have we got a strategic, without fail, quarterly objective and key result that we're working on every 13 weeks, like the likes of Google and Intel and Apple and Marks and Spencer's do, in order to maintain and build a strategically healthy business? So looking at the poll, There's a good chunk of saying we've got a low strategic health score, and the others are about the same level. No one's in the 81 to 100 mark. And would I put ourselves in that camp? Having just walked out of a strategic review of these 8 questions for our business, I think I'd have to. When these are answered and you've got clarity, when a firm takes decisions on these 8 questions every 13 weeks and identifies the one thing we're going to change strategically in this business this quarter and deliver on it every quarter without fail, what happens over time is the team start to believe that this business is going somewhere, and they'll believe that they're in their career is safe in that business. Maybe will be enhanced beyond their expectations. It's worth flagging up. Like, I've got a couple of reports, but if people are interested in actually taking the strategic health survey, this QR code will take them to a web page where they can access it. We've taken we normally charge £29 for this. We've taken that fee off for everyone who just scans this QR code and sticks their email address in. They can get a couple of the resources that we're talking about today, but also they can get access to that strategic health assessment. If they've got multiple partners, I would suggest that they get all 3 partners independently to do it, and then aggregate their scores and see what it really builds a really healthy strategic health conversation. Right, let me knock that QR code off the screen. Where do we go next, Luke?
Well, for me, it's the introduction of frameworks, and just going back to it. If you introduce anything new, that's fantastic, and you say this is what we're moving towards.
Yeah.
How important is it that the actual leader who's introduced it carries it forward, reinforces it, and makes sure that it works? Because if you're looking at engagement and one of your employees sees you introduce this, and then you don't live any of the values in which you're talking about,
yeah,
it's got to be led from the front, right?
You got to lead by example, we call it. So there's a couple of things in there. One is in terms of values and behavioural standards. So we've got 3 values at Remarkable Practice. They are: be wholehearted. So if you can't be wholehearted about something, don't do it, or choose to be wholehearted about it 100%. And I've had a couple of instances with team members over the years where one about this time last year, Paul, this project that we got in terms of this tech development piece, I don't believe in. I can't invest myself wholeheartedly. You need to find someone else to do it because I can't do justice to it. And we've created a safe enough environment. And if I go, well, just do it anyway, I'm not living by our values with Sally. And so I've got to follow through on that. And then I had to question whether I was wholehearted about it, and decided I wasn't, so we dropped it. Even though we'd spent a fortune on it, invested a shed load of time, that was my bad, not Sally's. So you've got to lead by example. And when we work with Douglas, my colleague, he's jetting off to a firm in a few weeks' time with 170 team members, working with that 170 team members as a whole group to help build out a set of values and behavioural standards for that firm. It's not coming from the leaders, it's coming from the team. Now, that's brave by that leadership team. But can you see what happens is that, by the way, the leadership team have to sign off on it. They develop it under guidance from either me or Douglas or one of the other team we've got. But ultimately, the team are building it out. Now, what tends to happen is they believe in these values and behavioural standards because they've built them. And if they've built them, they want to see that the partners follow through on. And if I talk about an example recently where I was in a board meeting with 7 owners of a firm, and we had they'd gone with 3 key values and a set of behavioural standards against each value, 4 or 5 on each. And the behaviour in the room didn't reflect and represent the values and behavioural standards that they'd all agreed. The team had built them, and they were. So I was just sat there going, look, folks, it's a mixed group. Which of these elements are being challenged here, and should we be behaving in order to bring this lot to life? And we did that repeatedly during the day, and they got the message, I think, about actually, if we don't follow through, the team are going to think this is the wrong place to work. by the way, Luke, we do flag up with firms is if you aren't willing to follow through on your values and behavioural standards, don't set any, because you're gonna create an expectation by your team, and you ain't gonna follow through. They'll be disappointed, and you'll create more discombobulation. People will leave. Your good people will leave, by the way, but they might do anyway if you're in inverted commas misbehaving according to the norms, mores of your firm, because the values in most firms, everyone knows what they are. They've just not turned them into the right words. Misbehaving usually results in good people leaving firms anyway.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there are a lot of issues around staffing and capacity issues and keeping hold of good staff. And what do we do with the staff that we've got? And yeah, we know that's a regular occurrence day in, day out in the conversations that we're even having with firms as well.
Yeah. You see this, I've got a story. This was a team in a large firm. There was 62 people in the team, Luke, and we'd established a core purpose that was crystal clear for everybody. They'd done a really good job of communicating it over a couple of years. They got 4 core values. There was posters and cards all over the firm on this, and it was being referenced often. But ultimately, this team was stressed to the nines. The leaders and managers were openly talking about interviews that were going to. The head of the department left. It was a proper firestorm of an issue. And we worked with the leadership team to just like unpack the challenges they were facing. That's one of the 8 questions of strategy. Unpack the values that really mattered, and one of which was very much a life work balance. It's got to work, and it wasn't. What we're going to do about it? Core purpose, which was very much connected to a balanced, enjoyable work life anyway. What decisions are they going to make? And all credit to the leaders. They said, well, look, there's too much work for too few people. We've got to exit some clients, which is exactly what they did. So they walked hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of work out of that team, literally not into another team. They just got rid of them in a very graceful, professional way to send a crystal clear message to everybody that they wanted to follow through on the values. Settled the team down. 18 months later, this team that was at the time doing about 5 million in fees was doing 6 million in fees with fewer clients, less work essentially, because we've done a bit of support on pricing to help them revisit the value and pricing equation for their offering. And now that's within that firm is a landmark team that everyone's looking at. This is how you create a values-driven, purpose-driven, vision-driven, team-first approach to building high performance.
Yeah, and I just want to pick up on that piece as well, where you mentioned pricing versus value, right?
Yeah.
Listen, as head of new business of an accounting software company, my message to my sales guys is always sell on the value the software will deliver instead of the task it can carry out, right? Now, as a business owner, and it's difficult to know the difference between perceived value versus actual value. Now, I think one of the main things that I'd want everybody to leave here with, or from this session, is an understanding of how to actually apply the value equation to your business, right?
How long have we got?
We have probably around 16 minutes.
Brilliant.
Can we do that in 16 minutes? Can we bullet point it and give people key takeaways to leave this from? Yeah. Maybe, right? But I mean, so how do you define and measure sustainable value for stakeholders in practice or in any organization?
Yeah. You mentioned the word earlier, Luke. It's good to look for frameworks here so that you can anchor your knowledge to and build skill around and build the tools you need in the firm around this. Yeah. So one of those is, what's the value equation? So it's like, what outcome does the client really want is one element of that. So what outcome are they looking for? I would argue for adding some emotive wording to that and got a dream outcome. What's the best possible outcome for that client if they've got your whatever it is, service, product, whatever it is. How clear is that? And if you haven't got clarity on that, which by the way is connected with question 5 of the strategic health assessment piece, the diagnostic, the 8 questions of strategy, what are the 3 things stable in time that really matter to clients? So as a business owner, Bearing in mind, I've bought accountancy services from 6 different accounting firms over the last 30 years. What really matters to me is that I feel a sense of certainty that I'm driving the business in the right direction. So I've yesterday had my quarterly meeting with my accountant, and we looked at the performance of the business over the last 12 months. We looked at the 12-month forecast going forward, and identified the 2 or 3 key decisions we need to make to ensure that that forecast is achieved or overachieved. So that was driven by my accountant. So I leave that meeting with certainty and reassurance. So that's one of the key drivers. The key outcome for me is I feel good about my business and the future of my business. You know, yes, forecasting, accounts, they do our payroll, they do our bookkeeping, they do all sorts for us. But I'm really interested in the outcome for me in terms of not just the functional elements, but the way I feel about the business. And that often gets lost from accountant to business leader, because the focus is on the functional elements only of the service, whether it be audit, payroll, bookkeeping, management accounts, VAT, specialist tax, whatever it is. They're just functional obsessed, which I think was where you loaded the question. It's not about what does it do? No. What does it mean? It matters more. What's the dream outcome? And people talk about, you know, features, advantages, and benefits. Now that loses the fact there's an emotional response, there's a functional response, and there's a financial response. There's a financial outcome, a functional outcome, and an emotional outcome. And very few people, Luke, in any form of sales, but particularly I think in the software to accountants and in the accountants to business leader space, are functional obsessed. They're not talking about the emotional impact on the client.
Nope.
You know, and you know, we set this poll up earlier on today about the challenges. Is talk to your clients about where it's going wrong, for crying out loud. You know, what do you mean wrong? Well, how did it go wrong in the last 6 months? What are they expecting to go wrong in the next 6 months? And long term, if that happens and consistently happens, what are the consequences of that on you, your life, your team, your business? And what will that mean? So we're into what questions do you ask to build out a sense of value?
Yeah.
And people aren't asking questions around functional, financial, and emotional outcomes.
Yeah.
And really, Paul, about audit? Yes. Payroll? Yes. Bookkeep? All of them. But firms aren't doing the work to get clarity on that. And it's unlikely that anyone listening to this is going to do, because it's hard.
It is
hard, but it's actually where the sustainable, you mentioned that, you know, sustainable benefit advantage comes from. The sustainable advantage comes from doing something that most people, most firms don't do. And most firms don't pursue strategic health, and most firms don't do the deep, hard work in that value space.
Yeah.
If you do, woof.
Yeah, and I think it gives you an advantage. And again, I'm tying this back to sales, but this lives in my world, right? We've got to be speaking to our accountants, our potential customers, to understand how is it that we can help our customers serve their customers more effectively. So it ties back into, are your accountants actually having the conversations with their customers about what they want? And that then probably gives you the direction in terms of where you need to take your business.
Yeah.
So are we able to offer something that would help our clients serve their client more effectively? Yes. Then we've hit it twofold. Now what we've done is we've actually driven and given the value that they didn't actually see.
Yeah. But keen to see is there's what I'm wary of there, Luke, a little bit is if you tell people, you know, there's, you know, some of the pre-submitted questions were about, there's this and challenges section that we on the poll was about people who resist change, including customers. Customers are resisting change. And only if they experience an emotional pain will they make a decision to change something. You know, I need a new dishwasher because my dishwasher is broken. I don't want to be stood at the sink when I could be watching the rugby or going on my bike or whatever. You know, there's the pain drives decisions. The upside benefits support the decision, but are less likely to drive a decision. Mostly, not always. And so, are we good enough? Have we done enough work on the knowledge and skills and habits of posing the right questions for the customer, the client, to talk about the challenges, frustrations, difficulties, issues, and their goals and ambitions of their business. And so that you've got something that's connected to financial, functional, and emotional payoff. So you don't tell them how good it is for them. They answer questions and tell themselves how good it is, connected to pain, connected to gain. They'll make the decision and follow through. I make it sound so simple because sort of it is, but this is the hard work of building a sense of value in someone's heart and mind. Tell them and they'll push back. Show them and they might remember, but they're not going to make a decision. Involve them by asking the right questions, whether it be your team or your customer, around functional, financial, and emotional outcomes and expectations. Are you going to have a much deeper, more valuable conversation that reflects on what you do and how you do it, and more likely to get them to buy, whether it be audit, CCH, accounting software, whatever it is, doesn't matter.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's the same message, right? Ask questions that other firms just simply are too afraid to ask, right?
Correct.
There's got to be a point of difference for what you're offering, because everyone offers the same thing, right? But then it's how can I bring that value? And you mentioned the value equation as well.
Yeah.
Are there any? What are some of the common challenges when you go to if you're looking at this or applying it, and how typically would you overcome them?
Well, if we just finish the value, so I would suggest there's 4 elements to the value equation, and I'm taking this from Luke. I haven't got anything original. I just go to people who really know this stuff, and it's deeply researched, and there's lots of proof and evidence. So this is coming from a report that isn't at the back of that QR code, but we'll work out how to deliver it to everybody who's registered for this this fireside chat. So value equation, dream outcome. How well do they believe that this dream outcome's likely? That's a different part of the value equation. So it's about belief, certainty that what you're saying and what I'm hearing is true, and that's about evidence, case studies, stats, and so on. There's guarantees. There's a handful of things that help you build that sense of proof, evidence, belief, certainty that it's real. So there's dream outcome, belief are 2 big parts. And so if you increase those 2, you build a value equation. How do you do that? Ask the right chuffing questions. All right. Then there's the other 2: time delay, stress, and hassle. So if I'm going to get this dream outcome, how long is it going to take, and how much hassle is there? And if we can work out how to reduce the hassle, reduce the time frame, so lessen those 2, you drive the value equation up. And you go, oh, right. Then the big question is, how do I apply that to audit? How do I apply that to management accounts? How do I apply that to forecasting? How do I apply that to business advisory, tax advisory, VAT, whatever? That's the hard work of building out a value equation. And it's okay. There's a set of skills about providing higher prices to demonstrate value. There's a set of skills there, and tools and resources and methodologies. How good's a firm on that? How good's a team on that? And then there's the value piece. How good are we at building out this sense of value? And the biggest hurdle, Luke, the biggest challenge firms face is they don't set aside time in their busy schedule to improve their pricing process and improve their value communication. So if you ask any accountant leader and go, right, show me your diary where you've got time allocated every 6 months to review and improve pricing and review and improve the value equation, you won't find any time. Now, is that me being cynical and negative? No. I'm just trying to create a sense of pain and pushback from the audience here. And go, look, no, yeah, I do. Yeah, but do you follow through properly using the insights around pricing and value and build it into your skills and processes and tools and resources so that it comes alive in every client conversation, alive in every prospect conversation? People don't invest enough time working on 2 of the most important levers of success: pricing, value, and I'd add a 3rd one, strategic health.
Yeah.
Put it into a strategic context.
Yeah. What are the accountants, sitting watching this going, well, Paul, our time is chargeable, right? How can we get around that?
Stop tracking time. They're not going to do that. I know they're not going to do that. Our time, chargeable time for your workforce has it got merit? It's got merit. There's some merit in there in terms of assessing profitability per job, etc., etc., etc. Are you a leader of your firm, or are you a technician with chargeable time? So, yes, have some days where it's chargeable time days, and have some days that are invested in the long-term strategic future health of your business. That's called an investment of chargeable time in the future of your business. And if you don't invest wisely, you typically don't get a decent return. If anything, you get a worse return. It's a good pushback, Luke, and it's I'd go, look, what's the primary product of a business leader? And they might look, well, actually, 70% of our fees come from accounts. That's my primary product. I go, hang on a second. So when you sell that product, what margin does it deliver for you? And they, well, each one might deliver, I don't know, 35%, 40% margin, gross, whatever the number is. I go, okay, what's that in hard numbers then? Well, average accounts fees 5k, 40%. That means what? That's £2,000, right? Okay. When you sell your firm, what outcome does that give you? Whether it's valued at 1 times GRF or valued at 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, 10 times EBITDA, what will that give you? Oh, that's a big number. Yeah, it's not £2,000, is it? It's 500,000. It's 500 million. And so, yes, we can have a chargeable time conversation, or we can go, look, the big payday is when you sell your firm. Are you going to invest in that? By the way, if you invest in strategic health, you might not want to sell the firm because it's so successful and you don't have to work in it because you've created this leveraged, scalable model, and you can take a very healthy dividend whilst you're on your yacht in the south of France. That doesn't come out of chargeable time. That comes out of investing in the future strategic health of your business, investing in good pricing process, investing in building out a value equation as a team. It's the payday, the payaway, the future upside is significant if you invest in the future health of your business. If you don't, the downside, you'll never know. You'll never see it because it'll never exist. And it's, pay your money, take your choice. Chargeable time, strategic health. Go from £1 million turnover business to a £5 million turnover business, or a £50 million turnover business to a £150 million turnover business. Well, to do that, you have to invest time and effort and energy into changing things. Build it into your diary. Diary management's the key thing that holds leaders, accountants, all of us back. I've just been challenged on it by my team. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I also think that's the perfect place to wrap this up as well, because we have a couple of minutes left. No questions. So yeah, there's just a thing in the chat here. Not many questions have come through. Paul's touched on a number of the registration questions. So hopefully, we've answered some of the questions that you front loaded for us.
Yeah.
If you think we haven't, then there is a place to find us, and we will try and answer them in good time, if not here.
Well, I'm the only Paul Shrimpling on LinkedIn, Luke. If anyone sends me, I'm not fast, but I do answer them. So
yeah. There's the more famous Luke Robinson than me. He used to play for Huddersfield Giants, rugby league player, I think. So don't message him. But yeah, there's a question from Ian Dixon. What books would you recommend for a business leader?
All them over there. It depends on the problem. Is the practical answer. But if I go to blocks of time for blocks of work is one of the key skills to transition from technician to business leader. You've got to work out how to better use your time. You've got to work out how to stop doing things. So anything in that space, Cal Newport, Deep Work's a good one in that space. I'd argue very strongly for if you want to get into building strategic health. Actually, the link, I'll put it up again behind the QR code. There's a report there which you can read in the time it takes to drink a cup of tea on good strategy. It signposts a book by a guy called Rumelt. who talks about, oh, right, what does good strategy look like? But if you're going to go there, I'd also suggest, why don't you get the strategic health assessment done, so you get a real insight into where you're strong, where you're not, what you need to do to build that strategic health into your business. Let's just stick that up if I can. Luke, what stood out have been of most importance, do you think, on this call today?
How you get around resistance to change.
Right.
How do you understand or portray the value of your business to both your clients and your staff members?
Right.
But then also, if we think about, I've put that question in the chat. Are you a leader of your firm, or are you a technician with chargeable time? If that's one thing that people can leave this chat and go away and ask themselves, right? Yeah. I think that's a really, really good place to start.
Yeah.
I've probably got a long list of books as well that I can't quite think of, Ian. That maybe we can do like a little bit of a library or an appendices after this and share it with everybody.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the resistance to change, and this can be probably read within about half an hour, there's a book called Who Moved My Cheese?
That's an old one. It's a good.
It's an old one, but yeah. when I read it, it's so simple, so quick, and it makes sense. So yeah, but hopefully
on that
one, along this things.
Okay, look, on that one I go. Who Moved My Cheese is a joy to read, and there's real powerful metaphor in there. The practicalities of leading and managing change is complex, and the book Winning Influence is arguably, it's rammed full of research, hard evidence about the most difficult change management situations of all time, and it unpacks a 2x3 grid, which is what I talked about on the roadshow. So we'll maybe, if we can work out, I'll get that business breakthrough in the follow-up resources that Steph sends out. Maybe I'll add that in.
Someone in the chat saying that Who Moved My Cheese is next to my desk right now.
All right.
So there we go.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Paul, listen, thanks for your time. If there is probably more that people will want to hear, or more that we've got to talk about, which I know there is plenty, we did discuss with Steph perhaps turning this into more of a series, as opposed to just a one-off, in your face, take as much information as you can. Because the more that we drip feed this through, the better. And like that consistent process that we talked about, and reinforcing what we're talking about, the easier change will be. Yeah,
well, there's knowledge is one thing, Luke. It's then how do you flip that into skill building, and how do you flip the skill building into it becomes normal, it's habitual, and there's a journey piece. And people watching this, listen to this, are going to get some knowledge, hopefully, and insight. The next step is, what do you do to implement something? And that's why, as a business leader, investing in the future health, performance, results, value, cash of your business, get strategically healthy. And I've just pushed people to, if they can, access that strategic health assessment. And then as a consequence, when we get the book live and ready to go, they'll get invited to access that as well. And it's just ran full of stories of work we've done with accounting firms. So yeah. So that was a bit of a plug, but blatant.
That's fine. Completely fine. Steph, I'm just going to hand back to you, just in case there's any housekeeping in terms of where the recording might be, what access people will have if they want to share it. So over to you.
Yeah. So thank you so much for everyone who's joined us today. We spoke to Paul earlier, and there's a few links that we'll be able to share with you guys. So the recording will be shared with you along with those resources by email, probably tomorrow. But like Luke said, if there will be a feedback survey that pops up off the back of when we close off the webinar. So if there are other things that you want us to delve into with another version of this fireside chat, then please do give us that input. It's really useful and really helps us to deliver this value back to you, where we're not just talking about our product, we're actually trying to help you. So please do fill in that survey and give us some ideas on how to move forward the conversation on here. But I think all that's left to say is thank you very much, Paul, for your time. Thank you very much, Luke, for your time.
Pleasure. Enjoyed it.
We'll close it off there. We hope you've had some nuggets of insight that you can take away into your businesses, and enjoy the rest of your days. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers, everyone.